what's your dad, Kimo Tiger? So today we're going to be acting to My Story Animated. And we're going to be acting to living here is better than to live with my parents. So let's get into it.
My 7th birthday is
And
one
that's
I'll
like,
never forget.
and
My
that's like
parents threw me a
Pennywise,
huge
like It
party,
movie.
and everyone from school and the neighborhood was invited. I was about to become really popular. Turns out, I did become popular, but not in a good way. Just as I was about to blow out the candles on my cake, Mom suddenly turned to Dad and started screaming at him. Mom yelled, "I saw where you were looking! You better keep your eyes to yourself!" My dad started screaming back that she was a psycho. But before he could say anything else, Mom had dug her hand into my cake, grabbed a fistful, and shoved it in his face. Everyone stood looking at the two of them in stunned silence, while I started sobbing. The worst was yet to come. One day, when I was in 6th grade, my best friend Melissa and I were watching a movie in my room when I heard something break, followed by shouting. We both ran down and saw a broken jug on the floor, and Mom and Dad were yelling at each other while Melissa's mom stood in a corner, looking absolutely horrified. Mom was screaming at Dad that he was flirting with Melissa's mom while Dad was, as usual, denying it. Her mom pulled Melissa by the arm and said angrily, "Your friend's parents are lunatics. You're never coming here again." Melissa turned away from me in disgust. "Yeah, I don't think we're friends anymore." I ran after them, crying and saying sorry, but they got in their car and drove off. That was my life growing up. One evening, when I was in the 7th grade, I could hear Dad and Mom shouting again. I just had enough. I was going to tell them that I was moving to my aunt's place. When I got closer to their room, I saw that Dad was throwing his clothes and stuff into a suitcase, while Mom was crying and begging him to stay. "What's going on?" I asked in a shaky voice. "This was the last straw," Dad shouted. "This mad woman made me lose my job today." As Mom sobbed loudly in a corner, Dad furiously explained that Mom had turned up at his office and accused him of having an affair with the new intern. During a meeting in front of the entire board of directors, the intern was the CEO's daughter. "She has ruined my life. I'm sorry, but I can't stay here anymore. Not even for you." Dad gave me a quick hug, and with that, he was out the door. He would occasionally call me to check up on me and would send us money, but he refused to come anywhere near my mom. I was so angry that I was left to deal with her craziness all by myself. 6 months later, he sent her divorce papers, and she completely lost it. Mom shouted, "I knew he was cheating on me and didn't love me or even you. Your dad is abandoning you for another woman. What a horrible father." Some days, I just hated her. Suddenly, she became obsessed with my grades and kept telling me that I had to focus on my education because I couldn't rely on a man for anything. Funny, because she wouldn't even get a job and just lived off of the alimony she was getting from the divorce. She would spend most of the money on silly dresses and shoes, trying to look 10 years younger, and went out to clubs with her friends every other night. She started dating this guy, Ron, who I didn't like instantly. He was fat and had yellow teeth and chewed his food so loudly it gave me a headache. I didn't know what Mom saw in him, but she seemed happier at least. One night, the doorbell rang. I went to check and was horrified to see Ron with 8 children trailing behind him. He looked at me with a weird expression and said, "Are you Edna's daughter?" I called Mom to the door. As soon as Ron saw her, he got onto one knee and said, "My dear darling Edna, marry me. I've given up everyone and every..."
If I was her, I wouldn't marry him.
"Everything for you. Now I and my 8 children are all yours. In fact, we can make more beautiful babies together, unlike this one here." Mom lost her mind. "Get off my property!" she yelled. Ron tried to convince her to let him stay. Apparently, his wife had kicked him out. After 5 hours, she finally managed to make him leave after threatening to call the cops on him. After that, she just stopped going out and ended up a depressed couch potato. She would sit in front of the TV all day, eating junk and watching stupid soap operas. I would come home from school to find her sleeping on the sofa with food all over her sweatshirt and the whole house in a mess. She'd gained a lot of weight and always looked like she hadn't showered for days. I was so tired of being the adult in the house and cleaning up the mess. On top of that, she threw tantrums anytime I tried to go out and do something fun. One night, as I was getting ready to go out and admiring myself in the mirror, I suddenly felt something hit me in the back of the head. You're not going out half naked, Missy. Put this on. I picked it up to see that it was an ugly, oversized turtleneck sweater. I wouldn't be caught dead in that. I just tried to walk past her and get out of there as fast as I could. But she was in one of her crazy moods. She followed me all the way down the stairs, yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs.
Oh.
You're such an attention seeker, Sarah. You think you'll find a nice boy dressed up like that? All boys are scumbags, Mom said. Oh my God, Edna, you're just as crazy as ever. Leave her alone. Mom and I both turned around in shock to see who was standing in the open doorway. Dad! We hadn't seen him in 2 years. Hey, Sarah. Meet your new stepmom, Dad said, and he stepped aside to make way for the most gorgeous woman I'd ever seen. Right behind her was a girl, who I guessed was about 5 years younger than me. This is my wife, Anna, and her daughter, Mallory, Dad said. I got married 3 months after the divorce. Anna stepped forward and took my hands. Hey, Sarah, aren't you so sweet? Just like your daddy. And what pretty hair you have. I guess your housekeeper took really good care of you. Anna turned to Mom and calmly said, Now, can you show me to my room, please? And be a dear and bring in some of those bags. Mom threw a fit when she saw all the suitcases they'd brought. Dad told her that she could make arrangements for herself, or she was welcome to stay as long as she behaved herself. It was his house, and he was moving back in with his family. As they all walked in, Mallory dragged her bag right over my toe. Ouch! I cried out in pain. She looked with an evil grin and walked off. Mallory wasn't at all as sweet as she looked, but mostly, I was actually quite happy to have someone other than my crazy mom in the house. Anna was a retired supermodel and had the best taste in clothes, and she let me borrow whatever I wanted. She was also an amazing chef and was always cooking up a storm in the kitchen. It was nice to eat something other than instant noodles for a change. Mallory was obviously pissed at me because she was always trying to mess things up. The day after they'd arrived, she snuck into my room and trashed all the gifts Anna had brought me. I was devastated. When I confronted her, she said, Get lost. Get your own loser mom to buy you gifts. One evening, I heard Dad yelling my name, so I rushed downstairs. When I walked into his study, he turned to me furiously, asking me why I was stupid enough to have a chocolate milkshake at his desk, and then spilling it all over his papers. I could see Mallory grinning in a corner. I tried protesting and telling Dad it wasn't me, but he wouldn't hear a word against Mallory. Of course, the one person who was truly unhappy with the situation was Mom. She would never eat with us at the dinner table, but a few times I caught her sneaking into the kitchen late at night and shoving Anna's food in her face. She started working out and losing weight because she clearly couldn't stand how good Anna looked. And every other day, just as we were sitting down for dinner, she would come down all dressed up and say she was going out on a date. One day, she said Brad freaking Pitt had met her at a bar and asked her out. Mallory snickered. Brad Pitt? As if. Are you sure it wasn't Danny DeVito? Dad roared with laughter and called Mallory his funny little girl, while Mom stormed off in a huff. One night, Dad announced that we were all going out for dinner. Mom made a face and was about to walk out of the room, but Dad turned to her and said, If you want to live here, you better start acting like you're part of this family. Go get dressed and come down in 20 minutes. Mom looked furious, but she had no choice. She was turning her nose up at everything and not talking to anyone. But as soon as her beef burger arrived, I could see her eyes going wide and her stomach growling. Without even waiting for anyone else's food to arrive, she started chomping down on her burger. Anna looked at her in disgust. You eat like a cow, she laughed. Dad and Mallory joined her. Anna's laughter died as a flying burger struck her in the middle of her chest, and she looked down at the ketchup and mustard stains on her white Gucci dress. She walked over to Mom and poured a large glass of soda over her head. Before anyone could stop them, the two were in a catfight. Mom was yelling crazy things like, You stole him from me! I met him after the divorce, you psycho! Anna yelled back. Someone had called the police, and they tried to pull them away from each other. Dad came down to the police station and bailed Anna out. We all decided that leaving Mom in there to cool off for a couple of days would be the best idea. We had a great family movie night in peace. I'd been wanting to ask my boyfriend Jake over to my place for ages, but of course, I never would with Mom around. When I told Anna about him, she was really excited to meet him and told me to invite him that night. Luckily, Mom was still behind bars, so it all worked out pretty well. Jake was an instant hit with everyone. Anna nudged me with her elbow and said, I didn't think Sarah would be able to get someone as hot as you. And she winked at him. He turned completely red. Wait, Was she flirting with him? And what the hell was Mallory doing, putting food on his plate and looking at him with puppy dog eyes? I thought, feeling annoyed. Later in the evening, while we were watching a movie in my room, Mom suddenly barged in, grabbed the remote, and switched it off. I jumped up angrily. What the hell do you think you're doing, Mom? Oh, you just wait and see. That boyfriend of yours is as good for nothing as the rest of them, she said excitedly as she shoved some photographs into my hand. I gasped in horror as I saw pictures of Jake with a gorgeous brunette in a cafe. There were more of them on his college campus, and then one of them going into his apartment with their arms linked. I stared at Jake in shock. I keep telling you that you can't trust any boy. Here's the proof, Mom said, looking really pleased with herself. I was so angry, I threw the pictures in Jake's face. This is what you do behind my back? You two-timing piece of trash! I yelled at him. He jumped up from the couch, looking furious. That is my sister. She goes to another college and was staying with me over the weekend. I am out of this madhouse. And with that, he stormed off. I'd had enough of this. Mom, you're crazy and you're making everyone around you miserable. Dad never cheated on you, and Jake would never cheat on me. Stop ruining our lives, I screamed. I went over to Jake's apartment and cried and apologized for everything. He was super sweet and understanding and asked me to move in with him. I moved out as soon as I could, and life started looking up. Dad and Anna kept in touch occasionally, but I didn't hear a word from Mom. Later, I heard she'd gotten a job and had finally moved out of Dad's house. Well, good for her. I still wanted her to stay miles away from me. One evening, as Jake and I were planning to go on a dinner date, he handed me a bag with a lovely yellow dress in it. I tried it on and kissed Jake because it was just perfect. He laughed and said, well, actually, Anna helped me pick out the dress. I called her the next day to thank her. I knew you'd love it, she said happily. I remember you'd pick sunflowers at the park when you were a kid because you loved yellow so much. I froze. Wait, what? I mean, your dad told me, Anna said, sounding a bit flustered now. Anyway, gotta go. My mind was spinning when I hung up the phone. I headed to Dad's house. I went straight to Anna's room and started going through her closets and drawers. I came across an old photo album, and with my heart pounding, I opened it. I sat down on the bed in shock. The woman from the park was Anna. It all came rushing back to me now. I hadn't recognized her because it was such a long time ago, and she'd changed her hair color too. I was left with no doubts as I went through more pictures. The three of them together. Not only had my dad been cheating on Mom all these years, but Mallory was his daughter. She was my half-sister. I rushed to Mom's new address, and as soon as she opened the door, I gave her the biggest hug. I cried and told her that she had been right all along. She started crying too and said she just knew it, and she wasn't crazy like Dad had been saying all these years. I convinced Mom that we had to confront Dad and Anna about this, and we headed over to his place later that evening. As I stormed in, ready to scream at Dad, I saw him and Mallory sitting in the lounge looking really worried. Dad said Anna had dropped Mallory at his office in the afternoon, saying she had errands to run. But since then, she hadn't been answering her phone, and he had received a notification from the bank that a large withdrawal of money had been made today. Stunned, I called Jake. I knew he and Anna were on good terms, so maybe he knew something about her whereabouts. His phone was turned off. Oh, I didn't have a good feeling about this. I drove like a maniac to Jake's place and called out his name as soon as I entered. There was no one home. I walked into the bedroom to see that all his closets were empty and all his stuff was gone. Had
Oh my God.
It's bacon! Smoky bacon, meaty bacon, tasty bacon, bacon! Oh, I love you. I love you.
Dogs go bonkers for bacon.
Jake run away with Anna?
Well, okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give a like, subscribe, and yeah. And once again, make sure you go check out My Story Animated. And yeah, bye, guys.